So we're here at Springfield College for the first ever video blog of Holistic Athlete, Mental Skills Conditioning for Optimal Performance. I'm Zach Etter, and I'm joined by a star athlete here at Springfield College. He is a all New England, two-time all-conference track and field and cross-country athlete. He holds the school record for the 800-meter dash, and maybe most importantly, a two-time academic All-American, my friend Jack Pinho. How's it going, Jack?
Good, how are you?
I'm good. Can you kind of just tell people a little bit about what your concentration is in your sport and what events you compete in?
Well, I do cross country, track and field. So cross country is just one race. It's one distance. It's usually the 8K. We mix in a couple 5Ks. The 8K is a 5-mile race, and the 5K is a 3-mile race.
Okay.
And then in track and field, I focus on the 800 meter, which is the half mile, and the 1600 meter, which is the mile.
Okay. So there's some long distance in there, some short distance.
Yeah, definitely some variability.
Okay.
Yep.
What's the difference to you in your thought process between when you're running short distance versus when you're running a long distance race?
Yeah, I mean it's kind of like how you said, like long distance. There's a lot to think about.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even though it's a 5-mile race, they kind of go by like that.
Right.
I mean, I don't really have a thought
Well,
process
you're fast,
to it.
so maybe for you it goes fast.
Yeah, but definitely in track, there's definitely not a lot of time to think. There's like a lot more going on, especially with the half mile because it's a quicker race. But yeah, I mean, there's not really a lot of people ask like, what do you think about when you go on for a run?
Yeah.
Like I really don't like think about much. It's kind of like you can think about your whole life in a 2-minute race. Honestly,
Right.
You really could, but I don't know. You're just focusing on splits. Obviously, there's outside factors with people yelling and. I don't know. The thought process isn't like I'm not thinking about okay, I need to make a move here, I need to make a move there. It's kind of just like how I feel on that day.
Yeah.
Just kind of going.
Do you find that you're more thinking about, like you said, the situation? So like the crowd, where am I in the race?
Yeah.
Am I going as fast as I
Yeah,
should be
for
doing?
sure.
Or is it a little more kind of like I wonder if I remembered to wash the dishes? Like, does your mind ever
Yeah.
wander like that in the longer races?
In the longer races, yeah, you kind of tend to feel yourself a little like at times, but I mean, like having your teammates and your coaches and certain checkpoints rechecking you back in
Mm-hmm.
definitely helps in a cross country race. In a track race, yeah, I'm constantly thinking like, okay, I'm in 5th, I'm in 4th. Like I went through the first lap a little slow, I went through the first lap a little fast. Like, am I hitting my splits right? So it's a little more technical in track, but cross country definitely you feel a little more, I guess, leeway with the thinking process.
Okay. So what I'm gathering is there's not really anything intentional that you do. It's not like when I get to this point I want to think about this, and when I'm doing this race this is what I want my thought process to be, right?
Correct.
Do you think that would be helpful?
It definitely has. I mean, I don't have a specific thinking process to each race. Kind of like, I mean, for championships, it's kind of just like, I don't know, the kind of athlete I was brought up as is like I was way more focused in during the championship races than I am kind of the beginning of the season.
Yeah. Okay.
But I mean, there's not a specific thinking or thought process I have to each day.
Okay. I wonder if your thought process, particularly in longer races, if that was something that you could figure out what works for you best, and then you could practice it.
Yep.
I wonder if that could help you, with some of the results that you see or your state of mind when you're running.
Yeah, no, it's definitely interesting because I'm new to cross country. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I started it in college and I played football in high school, so it's a completely different kind of atmosphere, like thinking wise.
Right.
You kind of had breaks between plays. You could kind of like calm yourself down. Kind of in a race, you're constantly like, okay, I'm cramping up, but like I can't stop. You know what I mean? So with football it's different, but with cross country, I'm still trying to figure out the logistics of it.
Yeah, football you kind of have the the 30-second break to assess the
Right.
last play,
Yeah. You can
and then move forward.
calm yourself down. You kind of like you can like actually breathe for a second. Like no pun intended, like with running, but I mean, yeah, it's definitely a completely different.
Well, you mentioned breathing. Is there a way in particular that you breathe?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes the beginning of races is like, as like weird as this sounds, like sometimes you forget to breathe because you're so focused. Like you're breathing obviously, but like sometimes you'll like be short of breath like in the first minute of a race just because like you're so focused on being in a certain spot, placement.
Okay.
So like a lot of times beginning of races, I'm really like forcing myself to dramatically breathe, like you know what I mean, just like really thinking, okay, in out. As like as dumb as that sounds, it's a huge part of the beginning of the race.
Yeah. No, I know that you're someone who, you're always trying to get better and looking for ways to improve, and someone who, holds the school record, for an 800-meter dash and has been like nominated for these awards. I feel like you're someone who doesn't necessarily, like, you say, have a breathing plan or have a mindset plan or a thought process set in place. And, it'd be cool to see if you could find something that works for you and then practice it and then use it.
I mean, even going into my senior year, I'm still trying to think of something that, maybe something that could help even elevate the mental aspect of it to a completely different level.
Sure. So today, one of our topics that we're going to talk about is sport injury and rehabilitation and the mental aspect of things. If you check out the website, I say on the site that myself, as well as other athletic counselors here at Springfield, work alongside athletic trainers in the sport and rehabilitation clinic, working with the mental aspect of coming back from an injury, the readiness to return. Is an athlete ready to return when their injury is completely healed, or is there more to it? And Jack, I know you had sort of an issue in the past year or so.
Yeah,
with an injury.
Yeah, just about a year ago, actually, the injury happened.
So what was your experience? What happened, and what did you kind of have to deal with that?
Mine was kind of like a kind of growing up experience. I mean, I was doing something unrelated to the sport. I was playing intramurals, and it was the week of conference championship. I had no reason being out there at all. I still have a love for football, and I ended up spraining my ankle pretty bad. Tore some ligaments, and I ended up racing conference and on one foot and racing regionals, but it actually prolonged me to my indoor season, and I was out the whole indoor season. So I kind of deal with the whole not racing for 3 months out of the year, which is the longest part of our season. And someone who I just was never injured in high school, like I didn't miss games, I didn't miss meets, so I really was not used to missing the competition feel. And when I started missing competitions, like my mental thinking process just completely went out the drain. I was mad at the world, I kept blaming myself for the injury. I didn't know like where to go. So I ended up actually connecting with an athletic counselor for the first time. I'd never seen a counselor in my life before. I'd never gone to talk to anyone about anything. Kind of thought I was too good for that kind of lifestyle. And I ended up seeing an athletic counselor from the month after the injury until I left for May, at the end of the year,
So, without getting into really the specifics of what you talked about, what did you find helpful in your conversations with your athletic counselor, talking through the process of being injured and trying to come back?
Yeah, for sure. Just talking to someone who doesn't really know anything about you kind of was like the first step. So like I just didn't feel like I was being judged, or like the lady I was with, she didn't really know anything about my background. So like the first meeting, I kind of explained who I was, what I was doing, and like the issue I was having. Not like, hey, I'm Jack, like you probably know I'm on the track team, I'm hurt right now. Like she had no idea. So it was honestly like kind of cool part of the process was just explaining to her like, hey, like I do this, like, but she had no clue like if I was like just like a sophomore on the team, or like I was a senior, like just trying to like make it through the program. So it was really interesting to see like the twist she had on just like giving me ideas to think about, and like how to get through the injury on a day-to-day process instead of looking so far ahead.
And I think what's cool about that relationship starting from scratch is she also didn't know how much it meant to you without you telling her, and you might not know how much it means to you until you really get into it.
For sure.
So that's good. And so you kind of talked about needing to miss like a significant portion of your season, and you said that there was some guilt there. There was obviously disappointment. Was there ever a point where you were concerned that maybe I'm not going to be the same athlete that I was prior to this injury?
Yeah, that was honestly for sure was like, how am I going to get back to the level I was competing at before? I mean, I was like on the rise. This was before I had broken the record, and obviously that was one of my biggest goals that year, was to try and get that record. And I just kept thinking, I was like, there's no way I'm going to get it now. Like I have so much to come back on. I have so much ground to make up. Like I'd be happy just to get back to running, never mind competing at that level. And it was almost like, just mad at myself, like why was I out there that day? Like why was I playing football? You know what I mean? But like I kept what-ifing everything, and like you can't what-if. Like you'll never make it through a week if you what-if. So I mean, it was just like going, like she said, just taking it day by day, and she was like, you only can control like what you control now. And there's the mental aspect of running in general, track and field and cross country is more than half the battle, honestly, the physical. So that was a huge part of it.
Definitely. And I don't want to speak for you or put words in your mouth, but one of the things that we talk about here, and we talk about with a lot of our athletes, is the idea of athletic identity. So someone who's as committed as you and dedicated as you and successful and puts in all this work, and now it's taken away from you. And it's like, a little bit of, if I'm not this athlete, then who am I?
Right.
And you know, what am I doing? And it's, you know, to try to navigate and find your purpose. And now, of course, you got better, thankfully, and you know, kind of on the other side of that. But that is definitely a challenge that athletes face, you know, the kind of now what part of getting injured. One sec. Quirks of the first time doing this. Okay, so I wanted to ask you one more question before we let you go. Last week in the blog, I posted about sports psychologists and athletic counselors working with athletes to get them in a zone. We call it the zone of optimal functioning, taking into account positive emotions, negative emotions, and breaking them down into positive and negative emotions that are helpful and those that aren't helpful. So just off the top of your head, can you try to come up with a couple positive emotions that you feel help you when you're running?
Definitely just like reflecting on past experiences, like successful experiences in the season, like things I've done in the past that were really like a bookmark in the season. Talking about like, okay, I'm capable of doing this. Like, I'm capable of running with these guys. I've ran with them before.
Yeah.
Just looking at back experience. I mean, not everyone has that though. That's the tough thing. Is not a lot of athletes have that successful thing to look back on. So, I mean, I'm granted with that experience, but honestly, a lot of just self-talk, a lot of self-motivation. It's a lot of internal talking. That's where I get a lot of my motivation from.
Have you found that that's something that you've kind of had to work through yourself? Like you teach yourself how to do that?
Yeah, and I'll be working on it until, I mean, the day I retire from my job. I mean, just with schoolwork, athletics, and just being a college student in general, I mean, there's always self-talk and self-motivation just to get through just a normal day.
Yeah. So what we do is definitely a growing field, and I think, you know, what I'm hearing you say without maybe saying is it could be helpful to have somebody that works on that with you. You know,
I think it's a lifetime skill for sure. Not just in athletics.
Definitely. Has there been times where, you know, you practice, you feel good about it, you get to an event, and you feel great, you start, and you know that you're on it, successful, but on the other hand, there's times where you show up to an event and you just like don't feel right. You just know that it's not quite there. Everything that kind of could go wrong goes wrong. Do you think that there's a difference mentally in what happens in those situations? Like, is that partly going on in your head, or is it partly, you know, physical and just the situation?
Yeah, with me, sometimes, like as weird as it sounds, like if I don't feel good warming up, like I'm okay with it because I've had very good races where I didn't feel good warming up, and there's been times where I felt really good warming up, and my legs felt good, and I didn't have a good race. So I mean, it goes back and forth, but with the mental side of it, is definitely like just like reassuring yourself, like, listen, like, take a deep breath, like, there's a reason why you're here, like, you've been doing it all week, all season, all off training. I mean, like, I don't know. With me, it's just a lot of reminding myself where you are, because the negative aspect of like the thinking can always just pop up no matter when, you know.
And then it could be a snowball effect, like one negative thought leads to the other,
and then next thing you know, you're performing at a poor level because of the way you're thinking.
Yeah, and one thing that I definitely work with athletes on is kind of intercepting those negative thoughts and coming out the other end as positive self-talk before the performance itself can slip. So, you know, I could recognize that an athlete's having a bad warm-up. And prior to it actually starting, we could fix that negative mental loop that they're going through because of the bad warm-up, so it doesn't go into the performance.
No, I completely agree.
All right. Well, I just wanted to thank you for having you on, sharing your experiences. Wish Jack luck with the rest of this season and then the indoor season that you will be able to participate in this time.
Hopefully.
And thanks for coming on, man. Appreciate it.
No, thank you.
All right.